Hey there, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into something absolutely wild today. It's an intense, completely ruthless framework for self-mastery. We're pulling this directly from a source that takes Machiavellian philosophy and applies it right to modern self-improvement. Look, if you're sick of those generic, feel-good routines that, let's be honest, fade after about a week, and you really want to understand the deep, somewhat uncomfortable psychology behind building an absolutely unshakable mind, you're in exactly the right place. We're going way, way beyond simple morning habits here. So buckle up because we're taking a deep dive into an entirely different and honestly kind of terrifying way of operating in the modern world. Right out of the gate, the source material hits us with this staggeringly heavy concept. Discipline is an act of violence against your own weakness. Just let that sink in for a second. According to this framework, real discipline isn't waking up at 5 a.m., doing some yoga, or trying to eat clean for a couple of days. Those are just surface-level habits. True discipline, it's an active, aggressive stance. It's about looking dead in the eyes of your own fatigue, your need for comfort, all your endless excuses, and literally burying them alive so they can't control you anymore. Okay, let's dive into this. We're breaking this dark manifesto down into 5 core phases today. First, rethinking real discipline. 2, silence and emotional alchemy. 3, isolation and unpredictability. 4, the absolute standard. And finally, number 5, death of the old self. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. Rethinking Real Discipline, the Strategist's Path.
The source makes a really stark contrast right away. It's crucial to understand we are looking at a system designed for strategists, absolutely not for saints. Think about the average mind. This is someone who's basically a slave to their daily impulses, right? They rely on motivation loops. You know the drill. Getting totally hyped up by a video, making these grand promises to themselves, and then breaking them by noon the minute things get hard. But then you have the sovereign mind. This mindset doesn't wait around to feel motivated. It actively destroys weakness to build this bulletproof consistency. The argument here is that when you stop negotiating with yourself, you actually become terrifying to others. Why? Because a mind that can't be broken by its own excuses simply cannot be broken by the outside world. Moving on to Section 2, Silence and Emotional Alchemy, Mastering the Internal. Now, what's really fascinating here is the concept of becoming the ghost. Think about how people operate today. We love to broadcast our plans, don't we? We seek validation and applause for work we literally haven't even started yet. Well, the Machiavellian approach is the exact polar opposite. You disappear. You vanish into the dark for 6 solid months. You cut out the cheap dopamine, you walk away from toxic friends, and you just get to work. You don't ask the world for permission, and you definitely don't announce your comeback. You just reemerge, sharper, heavier, and undeniably better. You let your raw presence do all the talking. Next up is emotional alchemy. It's this mental shift where you transmute the heavy, dragging lead weight of "I really don't want to do this" into the pure gold of "I did it anyway." Machiavelli argued way back in the day that a leader uses emotion but is never ruled by it. Think about a brutal workout or a massive project at work. You just can't rely on passion. Passion is fickle. It's like a tiny flame that a bad mood or a poor night's sleep will just blow out instantly. Instead, you rely on cold, hard duty. When things get tough, you act in direct, purposeful opposition to how you feel in that exact moment.
And the source gives us a brilliantly simple, totally practical tool for this. The 3-second rule. Step 1, the alarm goes off. Step 2, you have exactly 3 seconds. Step 3, move immediately. Seriously, if you wait 4 seconds, your brain starts negotiating. Oh, it's too cold, I'm too tired, I deserve 5 more minutes. Your brain is biologically wired for survival and comfort, not for extraordinary success. So, overthinking is literally the enemy of execution here. You just bypass the negotiation completely and command your body to move before the excuse even has a chance to form.
All right, Section 3, Isolation and Unpredictability, Becoming the Glitch. Just a heads up, this framework gets incredibly solitary from here on out. They call this the weaponization of isolation. Listen to this. You have to be willing to walk away from anyone who doesn't serve the mission. You literally have to accept being the villain in their story. Because as you elevate your standards and execute, your sheer discipline acts like a harsh mirror, reflecting their own stagnation. They'll say you've changed, and yeah, you have. So you absolutely refuse to lower your standards just to make them comfortable. It's brutal in practice. It requires scheduling total withdrawal, think monk mode or deep work, where you sit all alone with your own boredom and your own demons, and you systematically defeat them in the dark.
So the crucial point here is that by mastering your internal state so ruthlessly, you become a glitch in their matrix. You have to show zero reaction to insults, crises, or loss. Think about it. Manipulative people, and honestly society in general, rely completely on your emotional volatility to control you. By ripping out those emotional buttons and refusing to ever seek sympathy when things go wrong, you become terrifyingly unpredictable. You become totally impossible to manipulate, a completely closed system of power.
This whole idea is anchored by a famous directive from Machiavelli himself. A wise prince should rely on what is in his own control, not on what is in the control of others. That is the ultimate justification for this intense, lonely path. When you completely detach your actions from external validation or circumstances, you become this inevitable, unstoppable force. The source actually compares this highly disciplined mindset to a silent glacier. It might move slow, but it crushes absolutely everything in its path without making a single sound.
Moving right along to Section 4, the absolute standard, declaring war on comfort.
Our source points out that we are living in the most ridiculously comfortable era in human history. Look around at your daily life. We've got central heating, food delivery at the tap of a screen, endless digital entertainment, sugar everywhere. But in this philosophy, these aren't conveniences. They are sedatives. They're carefully designed systems that naturally make you soft and complacent. So having true discipline today, it's framed as an act of outright rebellion against all that comfort. It's about setting internal standards that look completely insane to the average, comfortably numb person.
The mandate here is crystal clear. Guard your time like a dragon guards gold. Be inaccessible. Be brief. Be direct. Treating your time, your attention, and your energy as an incredibly scarce, expensive commodity pulls you right out of the average bracket. Scarcity creates immense value, right? It fundamentally forces the rest of the world to rise to meet your absolute standard, instead of you continually sinking down to meet theirs.
And that brings us to Section 5, death of the old self, the hardest phase.
The source material doesn't sugarcoat this. It explicitly says this is the most painful part of the entire journey. It calls it the rebirth, but really, it's a metaphorical funeral for the person you used to be. You have to ruthlessly kill the version of you that desperately needs to be liked by everybody, the version that apologizes for having massive ambition, the version that operates on fleeting emotions rather than cold, hard logic. According to this worldview, you are actively at war with your past self, and if you don't sever those ties and destroy that deep-seated need for applause, that past self is going to drag you right back down to mediocrity.
The end result of all this radical transformation is what the source calls cold freedom. You basically have a choice between two realities here. You can choose the warmth of the herd, you're safe, you're fed, you fit in, but you're trapped in a pen like a sheep, totally at the mercy of the farmer. Or you can choose the power of the hunt. Sure, you might be out in the freezing cold, and you might be hungry, but you are entirely free on the hill, like a wolf, relying completely on your own capabilities. In that state, all that background anxiety of modern life, it just stops. Because you have nothing to hide, no one to impress, and you rely entirely on your own unshakable fortress of discipline.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question to wrap up today's explainer. Do you want the warmth of the herd or the power of the hunt? Really think about it. Look at your daily habits. What price are you actually willing to pay for absolute sovereignty? Thanks so much for exploring this dark, fascinating framework with me today, and keep questioning everything.